Love is our doctrine. The quest for truth is our sacrament. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to serve those in need. This we covenant with life and one another.
This month, we're exploring the theme of vulnerability. Vulnerability is a rich spiritual theme, one that invites us into some of the most challenging places inside ourselves and in our relationships with one another. I am so glad that we're engaged with the theme of vulnerability and that we're engaging it with courage and with vulnerability. I'm glad because it's a rich spiritual theme, but here's the thing. In order to explore the rich spiritual fruits of vulnerability, as well as the spiritual fruits of many other things, you have to be able to be in a safe enough or a secure enough space. You have to be given it to find it or to create it. That kind of space can be a lot of different things. It can be a home, it can be a family, it can be created family, or what's sometimes called framily. It can be a congregation, a school, a community, a society. That kind of space is where you are seen and loved for who you are, not in spite of who you are. And sometimes this makes a space where you're reminded of how powerful you are. For all of us, it usually takes some care to cultivate, to grow these kinds of places. But for those of us who move around in the world with vulnerabilities that are a result of how the world treats our identities, this becomes even harder. And this is compounded as aspects of identities intersect. Now, I experience some of this when I move around in the world as a queer woman, particularly when my health conditions have made me visibly disabled, as well as when I was younger, before genetics and life turned my blonde hair white, giving me an added measure of protection. It's funny how that happens. And I experience this even more when I move through the world with family members who are Black, especially those who are Black and queer. I learn about how the world responds to vulnerabilities and how we create places where we can experience safety. Now, too often, those with historical power seek to make those with marginalized identities vulnerable as a way to enhance their own power. And too often, they seek to limit or destroy the places where people with marginalized identities can develop as themselves, exploring their vulnerability and their power. And this week, building on the actions of past weeks and months and years, too many people in the Iowa legislature, forsaking their duty of care, have taken one in what they promise to be a terrible series of actions targeting trans children and youth. Both houses of the Iowa legislature have passed a bill to ban gender-affirming medical care. And additional bills, including a bathroom bill and a Don't Say Gay, Don't Say Trans bill, are making their way through the House and Senate. Let's be clear about what this is. It is an evil act in that it targets some of the most vulnerable among us, targeting their ability to receive the health care that they need to both survive and thrive. It is outrageous that so many of our state's leaders have decided to take actions that we know harm children and youth. It is also part of an organized strategy to develop and maintain political power. It is a part of a set of actions that a group of people identified as a wedge issue. Trans youth are being targeted and used as a tool to pull groups of people apart so that some people can grow and maintain their power. Knowing these things tells us about some of what our responses might be. So first, to the trans and non-binary children, youth, and adults who are gathered here, both online and in person. And to all of you who are watching online later, you are beautiful. You are sacred. You are made of stardust. How amazing is that? You are divine. Not in spite of who you are, because of who you are. The universe, nature, God, whatever you call the forces that animate life, they love diversity. They love pushing beyond expectations and into the possibilities that allow for the fullness of human flourishing. You are loved. We love you. You have so much inherent worth and dignity. There are no bounds on that. And no one should ever deny it. And when they do, know that they are wrong. Because you are wonder and mystery and stardust and awesomeness. And here is a story for you. Reverend Howard Thurman was an amazing minister who was one of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's mentors. In Reverend Thurman's autobiography, he talks about segregation, which was a system that separated people who were identified as white and who were identified as black. In the first part of the 20th century, segregation laws gave people different rights and abilities based on their skin colors. Now, Reverend Thurman raised his family in Washington, D.C. and Boston, where there weren't official rules that kept people apart based on skin color. But one time, Reverend Thurman and his family went to visit where he grew up. He wanted his daughters to see some of the things from his childhood, to meet the people who are important to him in Florida. While they were on a walk, they came upon a playground attached to a public school for white children. Now, naturally, his daughters wanted to swing on the swings, right? But the unfair law of segregation did not allow it. And so he faced a very difficult situation of explaining this to his children. And this is what he said. It is against the law for us to use those swings, even though it is a public school. At present, only white children can play there. But it takes the state legislature, the courts, the sheriffs and policemen, the white churches, the mayors, the banks and businesses, and the majority of white people in the state of Florida. It takes all of these to keep 2 little black girls from swinging on those swings. That is how important you are. Never forget, the estimate of your own importance and self-worth can be judged by how many weapons and how much power people are willing to use to control you and keep you in the place that they have assigned you. You are 2 very important little girls. Your presence can threaten the entire state of Florida. Those words carry through and ring true today in many movements. And they apply here. Remember, the force that is being leveled against you is a reflection of how important you are. This doesn't make it less painful. This doesn't make it less wrong. But it does remind you, and it reminds all of us, how powerful you are in your existence as beautiful, sacred people with inherent worth and dignity. And this story also reminds me, and can remind all of us, that the arc of the universe does bend, however slowly, in the direction of justice. People can try to resist and to bend it back towards injustice, but it does bend towards justice, and we can help that happen. So to all of us, but especially to those of us who are cisgendered, we will win eventually. Eventually, justice will prevail. And still, how do we reduce the harm that our children and youth, our communities will experience in the process? What are we as a congregation with people of many identities called into? Well, first, we are called to create and strengthen communities of care. And that includes right here at UUS, as well as being part of communities of care in the wider community. We've taken important steps in the past few years to do this, including doing things like offering Our Whole Lives for children and youth, and trans inclusion in congregations classes for adults. And there is much more we can and that we need to do. Yesterday, the UUS Board of Trustees and I started discussing the ways that we can increase how we provide communities of care. In the coming weeks, I'll be working on developing these further with staff and the Radical Welcoming team. If you want to be part of this work, please contact me to join the work of our Radical Welcome team or pay attention to congregational emails and get engaged with actions that we invite the congregation into. And if you're trans, non-binary, or part of a family with trans and non-binary folks, you're invited to the UUA, the Unitarian Universalist Association, Trans Day of Visibility Party on March 31st, and our associated UUS events, so look for more information about those in the weekly emails. Now, second, we are called to find and to act on places that we have power. Now, maybe that's using your voice or your position. Maybe it's helping create safe places by learning or by acting in ways that queer communities want. Maybe it's organizing and mobilizing for more concrete actions and getting trained to do that through a Side with Love training or event that we've been sharing on Facebook or through weekly emails. For us as a congregation, amongst other things, that may be becoming part of a network of people and organizations helping trans children and youth access gender-affirming care. The Board of Trustees and I began discussing these and other actions yesterday and are committed to paying attention to and connecting with the networks that are developing. So while I don't yet know what this and what other coming government actions targeting trans and queer folks will call us into, I do know that being true to my heart, my spirit, my ministry will call me and call us into continuing to take actions to support and to protect trans and queer youth and their families. Even when we're not certain that acting will lead to the full outcome that we want and need, our commitment, our faith, our hope, and our love call us to keep acting, to keep bending the arc of the universe towards justice, to keep reducing harm. Acting includes using our voices, all of us, whether we're trans or non-binary or love people who are trans or non-binary. Because remember that these actions are meant to divide people, to polarize groups by keeping some people from seeing the humanity and needs of other people. Especially if we're cisgender, we can use our voices to tell our stories, to help people who don't yet understand the beauty of trans people or the damage that these bills cause to understand a little more. Using our voices can feel vulnerable, but it also helps us create spaces where trans folks know that they are loved and are a bit safer showing up when they want to. It helps create spaces where trans folks and all of us can explore the spiritual fruits of vulnerability and discover our power. What's more, the more of us who engage actively in this work, the more we can take shifts in the work and thus sustain our energy and our spirits. So finally, and just as importantly, actions that we are called into are cultivating joy, playing and celebrating whenever we can. When we do this, we nurture our own and each other's spiritual sustenance. And we need spiritual sustenance in these times and in this work. We need joy and play and celebration and love and art in order to survive and thrive. So it is fitting and that in a few moments we'll be celebrating and sharing our joy as we welcome new members to our congregation. Yes, that is almost here. Because we need these and we need each other to survive. And so I'll end this reflection by lighting our candle for justice and healing. Each week we do this at the beginning of the service to acknowledge our interdependence with the natural world and with all members of our global community, especially the most vulnerable. We light this candle so that we may not be numbed to injustice and trauma, but rather find strength, courage, and love as we work in solidarity with others for liberation, justice, and healing. Together, we create resilience and we create hope. As I light this candle, let's hold a time of silence to listen to our hearts and our bodies, or perhaps to lift up prayers. It is a momentous time in the life of a congregation when someone new is welcomed into the covenant of membership, a time to rejoice in the gifts of this spiritual community. Today, Peggy Garrigus, Director of Congregational and Community Engagement, and Rochelle Honey Arsemet, President of the Board of Trustees, will be joining me in leading this new member covenanting ceremony. Peggy and Rochelle, will you come up here? Unitarian Universalism is a non-creedal faith. No one needs to assent to a statement of belief in order to find membership with us. It is our covenant that binds us together. Being a covenantal rather than a creedal religion means that as a religious community, we are defined by how we come together and the values and ways of being that we choose to affirm and promote, as well as by our ways of relating to various theological truths, rather than by a specific belief system. You could say that being defined by covenant means that Unitarian Universalist congregations are defined by love, and that ways that we are always seeking to live love more fully into the world. That's because covenants are a way of saying how we want to be in relationship with one another. They're a way of saying to whom and for what we want to be accountable, how we want to be with one another, and often some of the fundamental principles for our actions. They can tell us about what we aspire to be together. Our covenants and what we covenant for fundamentally define us as Unitarian Universalists. They give us space to engage in our spiritual work that defines this as a faith community, a congregation. And so this is a momentous occasion because it gives each of us the opportunity to renew our own commitments to living the covenant to the fullest and best that we can.
I am Peggy Garrigus, Director of Congregational and Community Engagement. I have dark blonde graying hair that is about shoulder length, and I have on a colorful blue jacket this morning, and my pronouns are she and her. Each of the people we are celebrating this morning have taken the time and care to learn about Unitarian Universalism and this congregation. They have attended sessions to learn the history and values of Unitarian Universalism, and some also have previous involvement with a UU congregation, or even this congregation. They have learned some about our UUS history in this Iowa City and Coralville area, and about the variety of groups and opportunities that we offer. and they have attended a preparation for membership class where they met representatives of the board and membership associates and stewardship team, met with Reverend Diana, and heard the importance of supporting our congregation with their time, energy, and financial resources. Each person has affirmed our values and principles and said yes to the call of our mission to serve one another and the world. Each understands that faith is a lifetime search for truth and meaning, and that joining this congregation affirms a willingness to continue to grow as people, both emotionally and spiritually. When each of them signs the membership book, they are committing to the principles of Unitarian Universalism and to the values, mission, and vision of this congregation. I'll now call our members' names, and I'll invite them to come forward, signing the membership book as they hear their name. At each of them, you're invited to decide whether or not to take off your mask. You're welcome to take them off so people can see you, or if you prefer keeping them on, that is also fine. Jim Carroll, I invite you forward. Jan Weaver. Leanne Hemingway Siebels. Jennifer Noyce. Amanda Owings. Oh, sorry, I missed Luke Leonard in there in the alphabetical order. David Quegg. And Sabri Sky.
May this be your religious and spiritual home, and may you be woven into the intricate fabric that is this religious community's life together. Here you will be cared for and will be asked to care for others. We welcome your presence among us and ask you to join us in the life and mission of this congregation. In the presence of those gathered with us in person and online, I ask you to state your intentions. Will you travel together with us in a covenant of mutual care and love, help us be a welcoming and inclusive community, and share in the joys and responsibilities of membership? Please say, "We will." And new members, will each of you join us joyfully and as fully as you're able in our shared ministry of serving others as we seek to be a welcoming and spiritually diverse home, a place where we act on our values to honor the earth, advocate for racial and social justice, foster deep connections, and embrace the ongoing quest for meaning? Please say, "We will."
My name is Rochelle Honey Arcement. I am here representing the Board of Trustees. I'm the president. I'm a 40-something-year-old white woman with shoulder-length dark brown hair and wearing a beige sweater. We want everyone to be able to welcome these new members. If you are here in the sanctuary, I invite the members of the congregation to say, "We will," when I indicate. If you are online, I invite you to extend your welcome to our new members using the chat function or by dropping a note to them using the contact information in Realm. So now, will you, ongoing members, joyfully welcome these persons into our congregation, invite them into our shared ministries, be open to their unique gifts and wisdom, and covenant to travel with them and each other in friendship, respect, and love. Members of the congregation, please say, "We will." Do you renew your promise to travel together with one another in a covenant of mutual care and love, to help us be a welcoming and inclusive community, and to participate in our shared service to one another and the world as fully as you are able? If so, please say, "We do." We do.
Jim, Jan, Leanne, Luke, Jennifer, Amanda, David, and Sabri. Joining the Unitarian Universalist Society is a powerful and transforming event in your life. Membership comes with both gifts and responsibilities. Within this community of seekers, you will be challenged to grow in spirit and to live out our UU principles in your lives within this congregation and beyond it. Ours is a shared ministry. You will be called to offer the fullness of who you are as individual persons in service of our mutual promises of love and care for each other. Our deep hope is that you will open your hearts to accept the gifts of spiritual community and know that you do not journey alone. As we end this ceremony as a symbol of the light you bring to this community, we invite you, one at a time, to light a candle. After that, in honor of signing the membership book, you'll receive a rose of friendship. Like life and like the rose, the journey of spiritual community may be thorny at times, and our hope is that the journey among us will unfold as sweetly as the petals of the rose. We are glad that you have chosen to make your spiritual home with us. Welcome. Please light your candle and receive your gifts. now it is time to sing children to our religious education activities. If you are here and you'd like to head to the religious education wing for activities, you can do that as we sing Be Open, or you can stay with your families here in the sanctuary.
Be open for something wonderful to happen. Be open to a possibility. Be open for something wonderful to happen. Be open to the possibility. Aye, 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 aye,
Good morning, everybody. My name is Fanny Carver. I'm a member of the UAS and a workshop associate. I'm a Hispanic woman, petite. Today I'm wearing glasses. Well, I wear glasses every day, but brown hair with glasses. I go by she and her. We're gonna do the flow of life, joys, and sorrows. As we enter into our time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer, we acknowledge the joys and sorrows of our congregation. We do this by dropping stones in a bowl of water, symbolically immersing our personal joys and sorrows into the flow of life's joys and sorrows. The water surrounds and holds the stone, just as we are surrounded and held by the love of this and support of this congregation. If you're participating in our service elsewhere, you may wish to meditatively hold a stone, watch your hands, or meditate on an object near you. And now, if you're in the sanctuary, please come forward, take a stone from the basket, and place your stone in the water as we sing meditation on breathing. Thank you.
When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. Breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out,
we enter this time of meditation, contemplation, and prayer, let's take a few moments to breathe together. We come here today with so much in our hearts. With the griefs of our wider community, and with the sorrows that only each of us know. We bring these that they may be held in community, and so that as we do so, we may find a way. We come here with wonder at the mystery of the ways of this world, at the glories of nature, and at the ways we can hold one another and find a new way where no way seemed possible. As we breathe together and join our hearts and our minds, may our bodies become sites of and vehicles for liberation. May our pains and our griefs find easing. May we find new possibilities for rest. And may joy and celebration and play and love seem ever more possible. Amen. And blessed be. And now we're going to enter the second part of our service, which is not going to be as you see it on your printed order of service. It is much shorter. I am not doing that to you, to any of us today. We will do a little bit of this as we transition. Let's join our voices in singing As Tranquil Streams. This was a hymn written in the earliest part of the 20th century to celebrate the growing relationship between the denominations of Unitarianism and Universalism. And in 1961, it was used as our merger hymn. Ethan, will you lead us?
As tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one who seek the sea, our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free, free from the bonds that bind the mind to narrow thought and lifeless creed, free from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need, a freedom that reveres the past but trusts the dawning future more, and bids the soul in search of truth adventure boldly and explore. Prophetic Church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward
Now, originally, before the events of this past week, we had planned to continue exploring the proposed new Unitarian Universalist principles and purposes today. You may remember that back in our service on February 19th, we explored how Unitarian Universalism is a living religious tradition, and how the words we use to describe what we believe, who we are, how we gather, and what we do in the world have changed over time. As part of that, I talked about how, as Unitarian Universalists, we've agreed that at least every 15 years we need to review and sometimes change our statements about what we do and what guides us as we do it. We've agreed to review these statements every 15 years, partly because we know that the world changes. Our understanding of the world changes. And we need to engage together in our ongoing search for truth and meaning as that world changes. We believe that it's important to reflect together on what's important to us and to decide if we need to talk about what guides us and what we're doing in new ways. And I began to introduce the proposed updates of our principles and purposes that are the result of the current review process. Today, I was planning to delve a bit more into the process that the Article 2 Study Commission, which is what the body that developed our new proposed statements, had used. I'd also plan to reflect on the processes that we go through when we explore a change, and to hold some space for the feelings of loss that often come up with proposed changes, whether we're excited about them or not. However, I've already preached a sermon, and I know that we have done some really deep spiritual and emotional work as we process what has happened in our state this week and how we're called to respond, and as we welcomed new members to our community. So I'm not going to do what I was planning. I'll simply share this slide to remind you that the proposed revisions to the Principles and Purposes section of the UUA bylaws focuses on our shared values, and then uses these values as the ground for aspirational statements of action. Building on the principles we've been using, they say more clearly what we will do based on our values. They also focus more on what our sources of inspiration do for us and how we should approach sources of inspiration. As this graphic shows, the proposal says that as Unitarian Universalists, we covenant congregation to congregation and through our association to support and assist one another in our ministries. We draw from our heritages of freedom, reason, hope, and courage, building on a foundation of love. Love is the power that holds us together and is at the center of our shared values. We are accountable to one another for doing the work of living our shared values through the spiritual discipline of love. Inseparable from one another, these shared values are interdependence, pluralism, justice, transformation, generosity, and equity. The proposal also notes that as Unitarian Universalists, we use and are inspired by sacred and secular understandings that help us live into our values. These sources ground us and sustain us in the ordinary, difficult, and the joyous times. And grateful for the religious ancestries that we inherit and the diversity that enriches our faith, we are called to ever deepen and expand our wisdom. And the proposed inclusion section notes that systems of power, privilege, and oppression have traditionally created barriers for persons and groups with particular identities, ages, abilities, and histories. We pledge to replace such barriers with ever-widening circles of solidarity and mutual respect. We strive to be an association of congregations that truly welcomes all persons who share our values. And we commit to being an association of congregations that empowers and enhances everyone's participation, especially those with historically marginalized identities. You can read the full proposals at the website linked in the bibliography for today's service. We'll be exploring them at a special service entirely devoted to the proposal on April 30th. If you explore the proposals between now and then, I invite you to reflect on how the new proposal might guide us as we discern what we are each called to do individually and what we are called to do together to bend the arc of the universe a little bit more towards justice. What we are called to do in the face of the legislation targeting trans and queer people, as well as the ability to engage in diversity, equity, and inclusion work in our public schools and universities. How does the proposed language guide us in this and in the other issues that make up our lives? Is it more helpful to you or less helpful to you than the existing UU principles and sources? What does that tell you? I look forward to continuing that discernment process with you in the coming months. And now, Kara.
How we give, what we do with our lives, our time, and our resources is a reflection of our values. In response to the abundance we are blessed with, every week this congregation donates generously to organizations in the community whose work aligns with our values and principles. Our community partner agency this month is the Free Medical Clinic. The Free Medical Clinic operates from a belief that access to affordable health care is a basic human necessity. They provide medical and dental services to Iowa City and surrounding communities for folks who do not have access to care. In the sanctuary, the ushers will collect the offering. All cash contributions go directly to our community partner agency. In addition to assisting our community partner, you may contribute toward your pledge to our society or can contribute to the congregation to provide additional support for our operating expenses. You may also contribute by check using the memo line to designate the purpose, or you may give electronically by following the link shown on the screen or through Realm. The offering is a sign of commitment to this free congregation, which is almost completely supported by the generosity of all who join with us. As we give and receive the offering, may we be transformed by our giving, and may the world be transformed by our gifts.
Si vous me disiez que la terre a pardonné vos offenses, je lui dépêcherai pas ça. Vous l'avez fixé cette terre. Si vous me disiez que la nuit via do ciel tra flaridastre, déchirant la dive cadastre, je faucherai donc la nuit. Si vous me disiez que l'espace est si vide et ne vous plaît point, chevalier dit la lance au bois, j'étoilerai le vent qui passe. Mais si vous disiez que mon sang est plus à moi qu'à vous, madame, je blêmirai dessous les blâmes, et je mourrai vous bénissant. Oh, du
May what has been shared today help us more fully affirm our interconnection and live into love and justice. Immediately after the service, we will have time to join in conversation and community. If you are online, a link to our Zoom coffee hour rooms is available in the description below the video in YouTube. If you're here in person, we gather in Fellowship Hall for conversation, and this week also for cake to celebrate our new members. I encourage you to greet our new members and sit down with them and have a conversation. They will be sitting at tables with a yellow rose. After our coffee hour, we'll be rearranging the sanctuary, the children's area, the chancel, and chairs, and we hope some of you will join us for that fun. I also want to announce that on this Wednesday at 7 p.m. here at UUS, we will have a panel on education issues related to LGBTQ rights, education on racism, and banned books with Ann Kreitman from LGBTQ Iowa Archives and Quanda Hood, a parent in Clear Creek Amana Schools addressing racism. So please join us for that. And now, to close our service, we will sing hymn number 1017, Building a New Way. Please rise in body and spirit as you are able. Please join me in the words for extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. All these we carry in our hearts and in our minds until we are together again.
As you go forth into the days and weeks ahead, may you go building a new way together, a new way based in love. Go in peace, love, and justice, living love ever more fully and fiercely into this world. Amen, and blessed be.
Go forth and do good things, build a world of your imagining, spread love everywhere you go, be kind to everyone who knows. fließendes Bächlein so silbern und hell, eilt zur Geliebten so munter und schnell. Ach, trautes Bächlein, mein Bote sei du, bringe die Grüße des Fernen ihr zu. Allide Blumen im Garten gepflegt, die sie so lieblich am Busen trägt, und ihre Rosen in purpurne Glut, Bächlein erquicke mit kühlender Flut, und ihre Rosen in purpurne Glut, Bächlein erquicke mit kühlender Flut. Wenn sie am Ufer in Träume versenkt, meiner gedenkend das Köpfchen hängt, tröste die Süße mit freundlichem Blick, denn der Geliebte kehrt bald zurück. Tröste die Süße mit freundlichem Blick, denn der Geliebte kehrt bald zurück. Neigt sich die Sonne mit rötlichem Schein, wiege das Liebchen in Schlummer ein, rausche sie murmelnd in süßer